What a day. If you are in the true crime community, what a day. I haven't had a day like this, I think, since OJ maybe, or Casey Anthony, but what a day. Sean Diddy Combs finds out he's partially not guilty and partially guilty. Finds out he is not getting out of jail anytime soon. Nope. He is right back tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern, probably laying his head on a prison pillow at the MDC in the Southern Manhattan, right? Because the judge said, you're too dangerous to let out. You're too violent. My words, but effectively, that's what the judge said in denying him bail. And he's got another 4 months or so till October to find out how long he's going to spend in federal prison for 2 counts of violating the Mann Act, prostitution across state lines. Okay? Could be 20 years. If it just goes to the 9th, right? The nth degree, it could be 20 years. Probably not, but it could be. So he's going to have to stick it out. It's going to be a crappy summer for Sean Combs in the federal lockup until he finds out if it's going to be a crappy 5 or 10 or 20 years in prison. And all of this happening at the same time that one of the biggest stories, I dare say, of the last 10 years, right? The Idaho quadruple murders, the mystery of why a man would break in to a home where 4 students were sleeping peacefully and brutally slash them to death, stab them to death. I've had to say a man for 2.5 years, and tonight I say Kohberger did it because he showed up in court in that tan shirt and tan tie, and that was the look, staring straight ahead. I don't know if you noticed this, but a producer I work with said, did he shave his eyebrows? And I tried to get a really close look at all these pictures. I mean, I looked closely, but those eyebrows were not the same as the ones that we'd heard about and read about, bushy eyebrows that one of the surviving roommates at 1122 King Road said she saw. Look at those eyebrows, you tell me. Did he shave those eyebrows? Something's changed, profoundly, but it doesn't matter. If, Bryan Kohberger, you were preparing for trial and thinking that shaving your bushy eyebrows might save you from the firing squad, well, you aren't going in front of the firing squad, but you aren't going to live amongst us ever again, because today we can call you one of the most foul beasts among us. You are a sick and twisted murderer, quadruple murderer. You said so yourself. My hair stood on end when I heard him. My hair stood on end. Finally utter the words akin to a confession of sorts. I want you to see it for yourself. Take a look.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Goncalves, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
All right. Based on the state's proffer and, importantly, based upon defendants' explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogan, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Goncalves, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first-degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first-degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right. The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. The court finds that there is a factual basis for the plea and finds the defendant believes the plea to be in his best interest. I find that the plea was given freely, voluntarily, and was intelligently made. I accept the plea. I direct that it be entered.
I'm not going to lie. It caught in my throat that Judge Hippler pronounced Xana Kernodle's name wrong twice. That was upsetting to me because I'm not on that case. I know her name. I care about her. I care about all 4 of those victims so intently that I listened to every moment of that proceeding. And I was just so disgusted by the tone of voice of Bryan Kohberger, the murderer. Just matter of fact, yes, guilty, whatever. Profound, just perfunctory. So as we were processing this, I told you, what a day. Everything else was happening on the other coast in New York. Again, Diddy, more activity. We had to wait till 5 o'clock today to find out, is Diddy going to get out of jail, waiting his sentencing? Will he have some kind of a appeal where he'll be able to be with his family while a long appellate process plays out before sentencing? And it didn't work for him. Didn't work for him at all. Nope, the judge said, no, you're not going anywhere. And then his lawyers, late in the day, if you missed this, came out on the courthouse steps to talk to the huge crowd and to the reporters who were all waiting. And this is what Mark Agnifilo, as lead attorney, said.
Today's a great victory. It's a great victory for Sean Combs. It's a great victory for the jury system. You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors came at him with all that they had. They're not stopping, but one thing stands between all of us and a prison, and that is a jury of 12 citizens. And we had a wonderful jury. They listened to every word, and they got the situation right, or certainly right enough.
We'll see if he feels the same way in October when the judge takes into account what he wants and what the prosecution wants in terms of a sentence. Okay, I'm going to flip back now again to Kohberger because this has been a true crime day. Senior national correspondent Brian Enton has been on this story since the very first day. He has been in Idaho for almost every single hearing. He is there live now. Brian, you were in court. Just take me there. Tell me all the feels.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. You know, it started with us lining up outside the hallway. Some people were here 5 or 6 hours early. We were all silent inside while the victims' families walked by and took their seats first. We went in. The first thing I noticed when Bryan Kohberger came in is what you noticed. His eyebrows were a lot less bushy. He had a fresh haircut. His hair was much shorter. He was skinnier than I remembered seeing him last time. And then it all started. And I think I was waiting for some kind of emotion, finally. I mean, some kind of remorse. And it just never came. I mean, when he would say yes or guilty, I was just staring at him. Just, is there a little something on his face that like shows that he feels bad? And it never came. It never came, Ashley. It reminded me of like when you're on the phone with an automated system trying to get someone and you either say yes or no and you just want to get the person on the phone, the operator. Like, that's the way he was answering the questions. Like, this wasn't about 4 innocent people murdered. And he never showed any emotion, just sat there, Ashley.
I wonder if he enjoyed the control that he had in that courtroom, if he felt like it was control. Certainly isn't control. We're dictating his life. The community, we're dictating his life from now on. But I was surprised when I heard Judge Hippler refer at the beginning of the hearing to both families, the families of the victim and the family of the victims and the family of the defendant. Talk to me about the Kohbergers finally coming out west and attending one of these hearings.
Yeah, I sat right behind them. It just so happens that my seat was right behind the Kohberger. So I was watching Bryan the whole time, but then I would switch and stare at his parents just to kind of see how they were reacting. They never cried. They never like weeped or anything like that, but you could see a sadness on their face. They were sad, and especially when it was over and they had us all remain seated, and they let everybody else out first, the families, and the Kohbergers went out, and I could just see the way they stood up and walked out that that they were taken aback by this, but their son wasn't, and I was just wondering what they were thinking. Like, they at least had a look of concern on their face, but their son, it was just stone cold, Ashley. It was just like any other day.
And, there we were on the East Coast in Manhattan where Diddy was standing up and clapping for the gallery and saying, "Mom, I love you," like out loud. And here were these poor, long-suffering Kohberger parents who'd come out to support their son, and he ghosted them effectively in court.
I wondered, like, someone asked me, did they ever look at each other? I never noticed. Usually you'll see some kind of eye contact or some kind of little smile or just a little moment between, a defendant and the family. I never saw that even once. I was wondering, like, did they get some time with him before or after? Because it's so weird they never even locked eyes during the hearing. The prosecutor Bill Thompson did get emotional at one point when he read this statement where he went over the evidence, Ashley. A lot of it was stuff we knew. There was some, just horrible, horrible stuff about how Kohberger, which we've always wondered about, Ashley, he parked, they say, up in the back of the house, which we never knew, up on that hill up in the back of the house. It's actually where I would always park when I was out there doing stories. And he parked up there. He went in through a kitchen sliding glass door, which we had suspected, but we never actually heard prosecutors say. And he went up to the third floor first, brutally stabbed and killed Kaylee and Maddie. And the prosecutor alluded to the fact that they were the targets, and he never said why, but he said that's who Kohberger was there to kill. But when he was going down the stairs, he encountered Xana, and then killed Xana, stabbed her to death, and then stabbed and killed Ethan to death in his sleep.
And of course, Xana had gone out to get a DoorDash delivery, and who knows if that was the reason that she encountered this vile killer. And but for the DoorDash delivery, might she have remained in her bedroom like the other roommates, and she and Ethan might be alive? Because perhaps Kohberger went there just to kill Maddie and Kaylee. Perhaps he went there just to kill one of them, Maddie or Kaylee, but they were in the same bed. There's so many what ifs, and maybe we'll get answers, closer to the sentencing, and certainly when the gag order is lifted after the sentencing. Bryan, stay with me for a moment. I want to bring into our conversation Steve Goncalves, who is Kaylee's father, and his attorney, Shannon Gray, who have, endured the wrath of all of this for 2.5 years. Steve, I watched you earlier today. My heart was breaking as you, in protest, left court, because it's no secret you were not on board with this plea bargain. You're not the only family member not on board. I just wanted to touch base with you and just see how you are tonight. How are you processing, and what your thoughts are after this momentous day?
My family feels used. We feel like they took Kaylee's name and they used it as a weapon. They used it for a reason to commit whatever decision that they had. But it wasn't a shared. It wasn't something that the community agreed on. It wasn't something that we agreed on as the victims of the families. It was a script. It was just a script that they had, and we just were just another name on a spreadsheet, and they just went through the system, and it was business as usual. But this isn't a family as usual. We're not a normal family. We're going to fight back. You're not going to play us. You're not going to use my daughter's name and literally pretend like we believed in your plea deal. We didn't. We believe in our community. We believe in our peers. We believe in a jury. We believe in the process. And maybe we're fools. Maybe we are complete fools for believing you should have a trial to put somebody in prison for life or kill them. But I'd rather be a fool than to believe in the system that I see before me.
Steve, you made the trip to Boise with your family. Did any prosecutors or anyone from the prosecutor's office reach out to you or anyone with your family either before the hearing, at any point outside the court, or after the hearing?
The only people who reach out to me are agents that aren't part of this court system that have warned me to be careful with this court system. And shame on me for not listening. Shame on me for letting Kaylee down. It's my mistake. I'm sorry, Kaylee. I'm truly sorry that I didn't get you a prosecutor who really believed what happened to you could only be fixed with life. Fixed, you killed 4 people, and to take 1 life for 4 seems like pretty simple math. But these guys describe this as a win, even though they don't ask us what a win looks like. So I'm sorry. I apologize to my daughter. I let her down, and it's been a terrible day. It's been terrible.
Steve, I'll go on the record saying there's been no stronger advocate for your daughter than you. I get it. It's been a terrible day, but I really don't want you going forward thinking you haven't done everything. You have done everything and more for Kaylee. Look, I see the system. I know the system. Shannon, weigh in. You know the system. You're a lawyer. You're in Idaho. I haven't seen an advocate like Steve has been for his daughter in any case I've covered.
Steve is, he's a rock, right? He's a rock for the family. He's a rock for this prosecution moving forward and gathering evidence and facts. And I mean, we've had dozens of meetings where we basically sat in and told them what they should be doing, and them sitting down and taking notes about things. But we all the time just trying to keep confident in the prosecution. And, it was not what the victims wanted. It wasn't what the Goncalves family wanted. And the way the process was for notifying them, and it just puts a bad taste in your mouth about all of it. And, and even talking with Steve and Christy today, the tone of the judge today was, I think they felt was completely improper. And so there was a lot of things that, you walk away after 2.5 years of just being completely demonized and hassled and trolled and you name it on the internet and everybody else. And for it to end this way, not only the outcome of it, but also the way that it happened, just seems really unfair and completely uncalled for.
Steve, you've got a month to prepare a victim's impact statement. You can say anything to this court. I know you haven't prepared it yet, but do you have a preview of what you want to say to this court when you get to stand up and what you want to say to Bryan Kohberger?
I was kind of proud of my kids today because I didn't go into the courtroom, and then when it was all said and done, after Hitler tried to turn it into his secretary being busy and his lines being flooded with phone calls was more pressing than 4 dead souls that were killed in their bed. My kids came out and said they don't think they ever want to go back into a courtroom again. So I don't even think we're actually going to even do a victim statement. There's no point in it. It's pointless exercise. I respect that some family was in my position years ago, and they they probably felt a lot like how I feel right now and thought that they should be able to speak and address the courtroom and try to fix the courtroom. That's probably what these victim statements were supposed to be, but they're not that anymore. And we're G's, we're Goncalveses. We don't participate in pointless exercise that are a waste of our time. What we do is we speak to the media, we speak to people like you, we make change happen from inside out. And that's probably why they get mad at us and they push back at us and they say that, you know, we're combative and this and that. You know what we are? When somebody says they're 100% for their daughter and they're a G, they're 100%. And that means some little plea deal that you made in the back alley isn't good enough. It's not good enough. 4 souls were lost for one Bryan. Bryan's not worth one of these people, let alone 4. And I'll never accept a deal where one freaking Bryan gets locked up in daycare for freaking adults. And that's supposed to be equivalent to 4 souls, 4 Idahoans, 4 of us, guys, 4 of us in college doing everything to the best of our ability. One loser from Pennsylvania is in his life, in our system, taking care of him. That's equivalent. That's equivalent. You need to keep calling. You need to keep calling people like Hitler. And maybe he doesn't get reelected. Maybe he needs to pick up that phone and hear those calls and understand who he represents. Because this is Idaho, and we hold you accountable.
Steve, if you may, depending on how the next month goes, you may change your mind. You may decide to give an impact statement. If you don't, it is fully within your right. Do you have a message for Bryan Kohberger tonight?
You're a complete loser. You're an absolute loser. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that we couldn't have ended you. We didn't find the leadership to end you. That's your victory, bro. That's the best it's going to be. You beat me on that. My bad. I believed in the wrong people. I believed in the wrong leadership. But we'll fix that.
What do you hope for him? What do you hope will happen in the future that is now inevitable for Bryan Kohberger?
You know, they say there's such thing as a prison justice, and some of those people have reached out to me. Maybe they have a welcome gift for him. Maybe they can, maybe this Pennsylvania city kid can go to Idaho. Some of those guys in there have kids just like mine, look just like mine, same age as all these other kids that were here. And you worked your, you made a couple choices, made a couple wrong turns, and you're in there. But you want the best for your kid. You want your kid to go to college. You want everything for them to go in there and win. And you don't want them to die. You don't want them to die. So maybe you should talk to Bryan, have a little welcome package for him, and welcome to Idaho.
It's completely understandable. I can't imagine being in your shoes. Like I said, it's a month away. Maybe Bryan Enton, if you could step in for a moment and just give our audience a reminder of what comes next and on what dates and what happens in the next month.
Yeah, the sentencing actually has been set at the end, of July, and that is when the victim impact statements will be made. I believe maybe Bryan Kohberger could also say something if he wishes. I do want to elaborate on one thing Steve was saying when his connection was breaking up, and I'm curious what you think about this, Ashley, because you've covered so many cases, but it was very odd to me that when we went into the courtroom, and it was such a solemn feeling, and it was, like the biggest hearing in Idaho history, and the families are there, and Bryan Kohberger's there, and there's just this really just deep, feeling. And the first thing the judge says is, I've got something that I want to address, like almost with an attitude, and says that it's been incredibly disruptive, that me and my staff have been getting calls, and the calls need to stop, and my staff has work to do. And this went on for a couple of minutes, and again, I'm curious what you think, Ashley. You were probably listening in the beginning, but it just seemed kind of tone deaf to me.
I'm not going to lie. I was surprised. I just kept thinking about Steve and the other family members. That's what they're hearing first. I know Steve wasn't in the courtroom, but it was difficult. But I also know how affected so many people across the country, indeed across the world, have been by the loss of these 4 beautiful kids. And so I can understand that there have been some calls and messages as well. I mean, look at those faces. Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, Kaylee Goncalves, prime of their lives. Beautiful, beautiful kids. And this is what it's come to. My great thanks to Steve Goncalves and Shannon Gray, who has been his rock. I know, Shannon, you called Steve a rock. You've also been Steve's rock. Steve, we're here for you. You know that we're going to continue to follow this. We're going to continue to support you as well. And I can't say it enough. We give you our condolences always, but we also send you our love as best we can from where we are in your moment of grief. Thank you for doing this and sharing this with us. I so appreciate it.
Thank you for your microphone and your audience, because without it, we'd just be crazies that nobody would ever listen to.
Well, we're listening, and we will continue to listen. And Brian Enton, amazing work, incredible coverage, and he will continue to be on this case as well. To all 3 of you, my heartfelt thanks for this evening. I do appreciate it so much. Coming up after the break, what will life for Bryan Kohberger be like? I've been thinking about that a lot today. I have been thinking about what's in store for those eyes when he finds his new home in a cell. Probably isolation for upwards of 60 years. At 30, life no parole is extremely long and very lonely. And we found out a few things about what's in store and where he may be. That's next. If you're upset at the plea bargain that means Bryan Kohberger will not face the death penalty because now we know he did it, right? Maybe you will find solace in what I'm about to tell you. He better be real comfortable on a metal bed frame with a thin mattress and possibly no pillow for the rest of his life. He better be real comfortable wearing restraints while being taken to the shower. And he better be real comfortable while showering potentially in a cage. And I know that because Lenard Vare has told me that. He's a prison consultant. He's the former prison warden as well, and he's the author of Elephant Keepers, Reflections of a Prison Warden. Wow, I was astounded, Lenard, at some of the things that I've learned from you about what Bryan Kohberger's life is about to be like. And when I say life, I mean 60 plus years if he lives till 90. But the biggest surprise, I think, is where he may end up being housed. Tell me where you think he's going.
So I believe that someone of his type of background and criminal sophistication is going to always be housed in a maximum custody facility. So I know that the state of Idaho has a maximum custody unit. That's where most likely he is going to be housed, unless they decide that they're going to send him to a different state. But he will be in a max custody prison for a very long time.
So Bryan Kohberger coming to a state near you, it's possible Idaho will push him to another state, a neighboring state, a state far away, a state on the East Coast where his parents are? What kind of state?
So generally, the way that these things work is the state has an obligation to house the individuals that have been sentenced to their prison, unless unusual circumstances come up. So let's say that there are threats to his life and there are credible reasons to believe that no matter where he is housed, there's going to be people trying to, attack him. Or it gets to a point where just the notoriety of it causes so much public interest that people are showing up at the prison and they're just constantly there, sort of getting in the way of the prison staff being able to do their jobs. In those kinds of situations, or if there's credible threats, it is also possible that, sometimes staff might know people that are members of the victim's family, and those kinds of situations can come up. And if those kinds of things occur, you do have to move the individual from one facility to another. Being that he's a max custody individual, there is not a whole lot of places that you can move him to in a state the size of Idaho, which has a fairly small prison population. At that point, they would look at something along the lines of a different state, which might have the ability to handle higher profile individuals, that has more max custody housing beds available. There are many states that are able to do those kinds of things. So it depends on which state is willing to agree to an interstate transfer.
I'm still curious as to whether his grand plan is to take his own life and thereby take the power again and avoid having to spend 60 years staring at a wall in likely very lonely protective custody. Mr. Vare, how will they keep him from a suicide, and how will they try to keep him from others shanking him, maybe wanting him to feel a little bit of what his victims felt?
But unfortunately, the way the system is set up and is that because of the notoriety that this case brings, everyone in the Idaho prison system, I can tell you, all the inmates and all the staff are waiting to see what happens next. And then tomorrow or whenever he is actually sentenced, he is going to arrive at the prison facility. And at that point, they're going to do a classification. And in that classification interview, they look at such things as, enemies. Does he have enemies? Does he have any connections with anybody that's housed there or working there? And so they have to try to keep him separate from all of those people. They're going to look at and see if he's got tattoos. So those are the types of classifications they will do. Additionally, they'll be doing mental health assessments to find out if he is suicidal or homicidal. And generally, when someone is looking at a very long sentence, like 60 years to life or life without parole, there is a higher risk associated with someone trying to take their own life, usually in the first part of their So that's the types of things they would be looking for. And if he is suicidal, they would place him in a cell where it's devoid of things that he could use to carry out that plan. So there won't be any sheets or blankets or anything other than a paper jumpsuit, possibly kind of a big blanket that they give you that you can't rip up and try to turn it into a noose blankets, or whatnot.
I've heard of them. I learned of them with Jeffrey Epstein. They should have used them in that cell as well. I have to leave it there, Lenard Vare, but I appreciate so much your wisdom on this. I'll be curious to find out if Idaho keeps him or sends him to one of our states. Thank you so much for this. Also, in just a moment, I've told you it is a very busy day. I've been back and forth to both coasts, and with the Diddy verdict, it's a little funny. You might think it's a split verdict, but there's two kinds of justice. There's the justice that happens in the courtroom, right, that takes away your freedom potentially, but then there's social justice. There's justice that can make you a pariah. So what is the justice going to be for Diddy after all of this? Is he going to be Cosby, right? Is he going to be Robert Blake, Michael Jackson? Is he finished? My conversation with Harvey Levin, next. No bail for Sean Combs. He's too dangerous. That's the view from the judge. Does that mean the judge will feel the same when it comes to sentencing? I had a chance to speak with Harvey Levin today of TMZ. He's been doing this incredible job on TMZ Presents United States versus Sean Combs inside the Diddy trial. And here is our conversation about what happened in Manhattan today. It's incredible. It doesn't matter who you ask. There seems to be shock one way or the other on Diddy about the verdict and then, of course, the bail.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of people, myself included, misread the jury with what happened here. I think that we all thought it was bad news for Diddy just based on the way things laid out. It was the opposite. It was really the opposite. And, when I heard about the one juror, an hour in, that the jury is complaining he's not following the instructions, I thought that had to be a holdout for not guilty. But it seems like it's the exact opposite, that this jury was unconvinced from the jump that the prosecution proved its case on the major issues. Ashley, I got to tell you, what Diddy was convicted of is equivalent to somebody in the San Fernando Valley transporting a sex worker to Beverly Hills to do a three-way. And that would end up, if even prosecuted at all, as a misdemeanor case in the city attorney's office. That's what the prosecutors ended up with here. This is a spectacular loss for the prosecution.
But it's also shocking because one of the questions from this jury was, if someone asks for the drugs and the defendant gives the drugs, is that distribution? Which is clearly yes.
Well,
but that didn't seem to be enough.
It didn't seem to be enough. And look, we've talked about jury nullification. I don't know that that's the case. To me, this case in many respects was square peg round hole. That you try and somehow create a racketeering enterprise around this crazy criminal, nutty, jealous boyfriend who's committing all these random acts. I mean, what I've always talked about is this wasn't organized crime, it was disorganized crime. And it was all this scattered stuff. And I think when the jury heard they're trying to show racketeering, that they looked at everything with a jaundiced eye. And the Mann Act, I mean, you can't get around it, that there was clear proof of the Mann Act. But even with, all of the sex trafficking charges, they're looking at freak-off videos where they're seeing Cassie engaged in these sex acts. And they're trying to figure out, where is the lack of consent? And I understand she testified, but they've got these powerful images. And he is an abuser. He is criminal the way he's acted. But they had to look at this case. And I think especially because of racketeering, it just kind of felt like they were out to get him.
Well, the racketeering, I'm just sort of gobsmacked because you saw the distribution question, so they clearly thought that he was distributing drugs, and it just mattered if somebody asked for them first. So once they got that instruction, they should have been clear on drug distribution. They saw assault. They saw and heard from multiple witnesses bribery. They saw and heard from two witnesses that were there that Cassie got smacked around in the middle of a freak-off and was told to come out and finish strong, and her escort lost his erection. He was so upset about it. There's so much evidence that would have supported multiple predicate acts for racketeering, but they just couldn't come up with it.
Well,
that's where I'm just sort of like...
But what if I'm right on this? That look, I mean, Ashley, you have heard over the years about how difficult it is for prosecutors sometimes because of television shows like CSI, that they just get it perfect, and then all of a sudden it's imperfect in real life,
right,
and it magnifies for the jury. What I would offer you is Tony Soprano, and that's the image that people have of a racketeer. Yeah. John Gotti is the image of what people have as a racketeer. And then you look at Diddy and you say, that's why I'm saying square peg round hole, that they're looking at Diddy saying, really?
They need new words.
Well, it's the law. The law is racketeering.
They need to rewrite. They need a new law that deals with commercial and or elite sex trafficking, because we're seeing elite sex traffickers all the time. Peter Nygaard's an elite sex trafficker. Epstein, elite sex trafficker. And the allegation is that Diddy is an elite sex trafficker too. They're not making money, but they're getting their jollies, which is the value.
But then it's a sex trafficking case. How is it a racketeering case? In other words, look at Bad Boy
Records. Add up all the rest.
Well, no, but Ashley, you look at Bad Boy Records and you say, this is a criminal enterprise where he's using it to further this criminal venture. This is not selling drugs. This is not doing hits on people. I mean, that's what people think of with racketeering.
There's the law inside the courtroom, and United States versus Sean Combs inside the Diddy trial is a great TMZ Presents program. I highly recommend you check it. Then there's the law outside the courtroom, the moral law, community standards. How are we going to feel about Sean Combs after this? How is he going to be? Will he resume who he was? A big, huge, important rapper said some things outside court. You're going to see him next. Big Mike. Amid the circus-like revelry outside the courtroom, people who were supporting Diddy, one guy wasn't having it. And not just any guy, a very important rapper named Big Mike. Big Mike went out in front of this whole crowd and said what he thinks about the cultural statement that's being made with a rapper who has behaviors like Diddy. Here's Big Mike.
I am happy that he got denied bail. I'm happy. That's why I sat here and watched everybody dance, do the Diddy bop. I don't hear no music now. For all y'all rappers out there, Jay-Z, Rick Ross, DJ Khaled, all of y'all that was participating in a lot that y'all getting away with. Guess what? Guess what? This is a message. Y'all are not going to be using y'all money to get away with that y'all been getting away with for years and years and years.
Some words. Just quick, Jay-Z, DJ Khaled, Rick Ross not facing charges like this right now. But what a comment, because you know what? That's the court of public opinion, and the jury's out. Thanks so much for being a part of our coverage on News Nation. It's been a busy day. Please get some sleep and tell your loved ones you love them.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.